You know what guys, video card prices suck, so don't use one in your next build. Cooler Master's new MasterKeys MK750 mechanical gaming keyboard features a minimalistic, distraction-free design, Cherry MX floating keycaps, magnetic removable wrist rest, USB Type-C, and an on-the-fly system with no software, making it easier for you to game smarter and not harder. To learn more, check out the links in the description below. So what happens when Ryzen and Vega make love and have a baby? Well, you get the Ryzen 3 2200G and the Ryzen 5 2400G. Both of these are Ryzen CPUs with Vega graphics integrated into them. This is a big deal because we have not seen an integrated GPU into a mainstream CPU from AMD in quite a while. Sure, we've had the FM sockets and APUs and all that stuff, but this is literally going to be a godsend to people trying to build a system in 2018 and get around the god-awful pricing of video cards. So today's video is gonna be more based on trying to put together a system that's based on no GPU whatsoever and seeing how well you can actually game in 2018 without actually having a video card. Now I did a video on something similar all the way back in 2013 looking at AMD's APU, which was a Kaveri-based CPU. So if you guys wanna go and watch that video first or after this, whatever, you can kind of see how far we've come since 2013 or the last 5 years. So this is pretty awesome to see what is coming out of AMD's corner. And this isn't even Ryzen 2. Do not confuse this for Ryzen 2nd gen. This is just a progression of an already amazing platform giving price to performance for buyers. And right now, when it comes to graphics card pricing, I don't think this could have been launched at a better time. So for the build today, because we're not buying a video card, I kind of decided to put that money into some other things that would allow you to have a pretty kick-ass system out of the box, and then you can add a graphics card to it later, and we will do a follow-up where we add a graphics card to this to see just how much your experience can improve if graphics card pricing improves. So we're gonna be putting aside the Ryzen 3 for now, and we're gonna be using the Ryzen 5 2400G. Now I'm gonna be pairing this with an MSI B350M gaming micro ATX motherboard. And here's the best part about the 2400G, the 2200G, whichever models you get. I hope there's a Ryzen 7 version coming, is the fact that you don't have to change your motherboard to upgrade in the future, where before you had to use the FM socket to take advantage of the Kaveri APU or the FX socket if you wanted to take advantage of their mainstream CPUs. But now you have them in one platform, giving you a lot of future compatibility. So I'm also gonna be pairing this with some Flare X DDR4. Probably the most expensive piece in the system is going to be memory in terms of like cost per whatever, right? Cost per gigabyte. RAM is still kind of high, but remember, we're not spending these stupid 2.5 times inflated pricing of video cards. So we've got 16 gigabytes of 3200 memory. Now the reason why we want a decent amount of memory and decent fast memory is one, as you know, the Infinity Fabric and the entire architecture of Ryzen takes advantage of memory speed. And because we're dealing with an APU, we're gonna see gains with fast memory as well. So that's why you don't wanna scrimp on your memory. I want to keep things fairly reasonable though in terms of pricing. So we've got a Cooler Master MasterWatt 550 semi-modular power supply, more than enough power to power an APU, like overkill for an APU, but future compatibility, once again, with graphics cards so that we can put a discrete graphics card in here and not worry about having not enough power if we went with something like a 400 watt. And we've got the Masterbox Lite TG. This is a tempered glass case for right around the $50 price range. So that's one of the reasons why I went with this. It's a micro ATX motherboard compatible case. So that's why we're using an MATX motherboard. There are other cases out there obviously in this price range or cheaper if you want to use a full ATX. So just something to keep in mind if you're kind of mimicking this build. This is a micro ATX only. We've got ourselves here a 250 gigabyte Samsung SATA SSD, and then I've got a 2 terabyte Seagate Barracuda drive, 7200 RPM drive. We are gonna be using the cooling that comes with the Vega APU here. So we're gonna be using the inbox cooler. And then what else do we got right here? Are we missing anything? It feels like we're missing something because we don't have a graphics card, right? I also decided to up the cooling. This only comes with one exhaust fan on the back. I am adding 2 Corsair AF 140 fans on the front. These are not the cheapest fans, but you can obviously adjust your pricing and the parts you pick based on your budget. So with all that said, let's go ahead and start building and see exactly how well this performs. I have not tested any of this yet. I'm gonna be finding out with you guys in real time.
3:28 a.m.
A lot of time has passed since the intro of this video, and I'm just, okay, fine. So we switched to vlog mode, so I can kind of show you what's going on. As you can see, the system is a little different than we first showed. I've got a different cooler on there. This is the Noctua cooler that was sent with the original Ryzen pieces last year when Ryzen first launched. It's a different motherboard too. As you can see, it's the ITX motherboard. It was the ITX motherboard that they sent with the unit. I didn't want to do an ITX build. They're really pushing the whole ITX thing right now because it's newer stuff for them, but I don't think most people are gonna be running out and buying an overpriced ITX board, so I didn't want to really do that. The thing is that they didn't have official supported BIOS yet for Raven Ridge. Even though the MSI website has a Raven Ridge BIOS, AMD was very adamant that I don't use that and that motherboard. The irony is it actually worked, because what I'm gonna show you right now is what I'm dealing with and why I've now switched to vlog mode, and I'm not gonna actually be able to give you any numbers on today's video. We'll be doing a follow-up. Anyway, the way APUs work is they share system memory. Because it's not a graphics card. Remember, a graphics card is just another computer inside of a computer. It's got a GPU process, it's got a processing unit, it's got its own memory, it's got its own power delivery, and it's basically a computer inside of the computer that handles all of the video processing. APUs, when they are stacked inside of a CPU, they have to share resources with the system. So if we go over here to settings and we look at advanced and we go here to integrated graphics configuration, you can see we're set to IGD, or integrated graphics. We're set to force and 2G of video memory. So 2G, or 2 gigabytes of video memory, is allocated to the APU. By default, 512 megabytes is what is set to the APU, because all it's kind of set to do from the factory is just turn on and give you an image, desktop, stuff like that. If you want to go into this gaming mode, you need more memory. Now, what I got through my benchmarks, at least with the 512, because I was going to do 3 different settings for this benchmark. I was going to do straight up out of the box with the slow memory, the 512 megabytes of memory allocated to the APU, and no overclocking on the CPU whatsoever. And the average frame rates for that was Metro Last Light was giving us a 19.59 frames per second in 1080p medium. I was getting 12.39 frames per second average in Tomb Raider, or Rise of the Tomb Raider medium settings in DX12. Time Spy gave me a graphics score of 522. Firestrike gave me a graphics score of 1535. Dirt Rally in medium settings, an average of 23.36 frames per second. So terrible, absolutely terrible. That's not anything anyone would want to, actually write home about and say, I've got a good gaming computer, but that's because it's being limited by its VRAM, obviously. 512 megabytes of VRAM is not enough for 1080p, obviously. So that's why 2 gigs is important. Now that's the most that you can give it, and we've got 16 gigabytes of RAM actually in the system, you can see right there. Now if we go ahead and save that, it's 2G. So we got 2 gigs of video RAM set to the APU. Let me show you what we're experiencing. All right, so while we're loading up, I'm gonna do Rise of the Tomb Raider. It's got a pretty consistent benchmark, one that I use quite often when I'm doing my graphics cards and stuff. Go to graphics, it's set to medium, all the medium defaults. So that is something that is not too hard for a system to run. Now, if we go ahead and go in here and just kind of launch the benchmark, what I'm experiencing here is the frames per second increase big time by going from 512 to 2 gigabytes, as expected, because we're not choking it off to where it can't actually render textures because it doesn't have enough buffer. But what I'm experiencing here is, and keep in mind, this is still with the stock settings for the CPU and the memory. So if I go in here to the benchmark, look at the delay. First of all, there's this huge input delay on when the menu reacts. So that's something I've noticed. But what you're gonna see is the benchmark is gonna run. How far it gets it differentiates randomly. It's kind of random on when it crashes, but it will crash and give me just a solid black screen. We'll call it the black screen of death. Frames per second right here is actually not terrible. It's probably in the 30s or 40s. Keep in mind, I have not sped up system memory, which affects APU. I've not sped up the CPU. This is just adding more VRAM to the APU. So it increased quite a bit. This is obviously, and there it goes. There it is. Doesn't matter what I do. It doesn't matter what game I'm running. I have reset factory defaults. I have reinstalled the BIOS. I have reinstalled the graphics driver. I've been on the phone with AMD. The problem is it's a weekend. So there's not really anybody in the engineering side that can help me. And it's frustrating because I wasn't getting these problems when I was using my B350 gaming board, which is, again, I don't even know where it is. This guy right here, when I was using this guy. So I'm gonna kind of leave it to Nick real quick. You think I should install this motherboard back in there and see if our problems go away? So we at least narrow it down to a motherboard?
Yeah.
Yeah? Okay, we'll do that real quick. There we go. As the build progressively gets more and more ugly and less cable managed, because I honestly don't care anymore at this point, let's see if it'll at least make it through a test with the unsupported motherboard, which as you can see is indeed giving us a picture. There we go. See, the difference too is it doesn't have that forced and auto mode. And yes, I tried the forced and auto and blah, 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 but whatever. We're set to 2G. I think we even have an overclock on this one right now. We are set to 3.8 XMP profile. We're set to 3200. Was our graphics core set to? We'll set it to 1250. No, there we go. 1250, because that is what the factory speed is on that. 1250 is like what the turbo clock is supposed to be. My eyes red because I feel red. I'm looking at this all day. All right, so what I'm basically doing now is I'm ruling out the possibility of a bad CPU by changing out the motherboard. And I honestly think it's the motherboard. Look at the FPS already, up in the 50s. It's moving so quickly, but it's about, look at that, 55. This is way better than we were seeing on the ITX board, isn't it? Okay, I'm gonna let this run. I'm gonna see if it gets through the test. If it gets through the test, maybe I will just continue my testing with this motherboard and I'll put an asterisk that it's not the board that AMD sent me. I kind of like doing tests on product that's not sent to me direct by the manufacturer because of the idea of cherry picking and stuff. But based on the experience I've been having so far, I don't think we can call this one cherry picked. So I got through all the tests with an asterisk because this is not the motherboard they sent me, and they did tell me that this motherboard does not have the latest BIOS, which is going to give a little more of an advantage to the APU. There's some maturity that's going to have to happen here, but we saw some pretty solid gains. I mean, it was nearly double when we went from the 512 to the 2 gigs without changing any clock speeds. And then I overclocked it to 1,375 megahertz on the APU, 3.8 gigahertz on the CPU, and the memory from the base 2133, I think it was, up to 3200. So we saw some pretty solid gains. You guys might have noticed there was a blank spot there on Rise of the Tomb Raider, and if I show you here, it refuses to actually launch. See, I get this error. So with it overclocked, that game refuses to launch. But what I want to do here is I want to kind of show you some live gameplay, at least real quick, with something like Doom, something that has the Vulkan API, which is actually really good with lower end hardware, just to kind of see where things actually go. I love Doom simply because it's one of those titles that will literally run on anything. Okay, so we're in 1920 by 1080, anti-aliasing. We're gonna turn that to like FXAA, motion blur medium, that's fine, I guess. Vertical sync is on. FPS is not looking too solid right here though, that's for sure. What are the presets? Okay, well, we're set to Ultra, first of all. we don't want Ultra. Look at this. Why is it on Ultra? Maybe that's what we played on last time. Okay, medium settings. It's gonna restart the game. Ultra. Why? No. Okay, so looks like if we just went for low settings here. I mean, what do we expect? We have no graphics card, right? I mean, let's see what happens here. If we just go low settings, no graphics card, it's locked to kind of 60 FPS, but I think that's a menu thing. So let's just see what happens when we get into the game. Remember, there's no graphics card. That's important to remember here. 50 FPS, it's 1080p low settings. Oh, is that the end of the level? I want to try something here. What if I go to like 720p settings? And if we turn off anti-aliasing like altogether, I mean, it's about as low as it can go. We can't. Uh-oh. Did it lock up? It locked up on us. Guys, I'm just gonna go ahead and end it right there because that's unfortunate. I mean, this has unfortunately been our experience. Now we're gonna circle back here. I've been in contact with AMD. I've told them that I'm gonna show the experiences here and they're like, okay, that's fair. This is what I've been experiencing. I mean, it's completely locked up right now. Now there is a little bit of an overclock on there. Remember, we're not running, oh, and there it goes right there. Video failure. Okay, well, at least it kind of figured out what went wrong. So anyway, we're gonna circle back on this. This has been my experience here, but I can tell you this, if you just look at Cinebench as well, this CPU, the 2400G, is designed specifically to replace the 1400, the Ryzen 5 1400, and it's doing a good job of it. It's faster in Cinebench by a significant amount, and as we overclock it, it just pulls way ahead, obviously. So would I recommend this APU given the experiences I'm having so far? The answer is yes, and let me explain why. Again, you're getting better CPU performance, even just from the CPU side of things, if we're not even talking about the graphics card, than you would get with a Ryzen 5 1400 for the same price. That's the biggest thing. This is advertised at being a $169 CPU. The $99 part we'll look at in another video, the 2200G, the Ryzen 3, 4 cores, 4 threads. This is a 4-core, 8-thread with a built-in APU that can actually play games. I mean, it's not gonna play them, you know, like a discrete graphics card. It's not gonna be able to crank the settings. Just because it says Vega, don't think it's like they took a Vega, you know, stacked 3D RAM and stuck it inside this. No, it's much better than anything you're gonna get on the Intel part, that's for sure. Intel has never been known for strong APU graphics, but I wanna circle back here and see what kind of maturity we get. This feels a lot like when the Ryzen launch first happened, how there was a lot of weird things going on. I know this has been kind of a fragmented, incomplete video, but my experience has been fragmented and incomplete. And I've been at this today for like 12 hours today alone. It is what it is, guys. We'll circle back. Tell me what you guys think below. If you're looking at trying to get into games, but you don't want to buy a graphics card right now, you can actually do that with this part. And then as the GPU market hopefully stabilizes and the prices come back down to normal, you can throw a GPU in here and have a very good experience, just as if it was another Ryzen part without the integrated graphics. So it's not like you have to change your platform. Like I said at the start of this video, it's not like you have a different socket for an APU and a different socket for your CPU. This is a part that can grow with you. So that's kind of where this really is going to shine. Not necessarily the standalone replacement for graphics cards, but definitely something that can grow with you and at least get you started while this pricing for graphics cards is completely upside down. Anyway, I'm gonna go. There will be a follow-up to this. Again, I'm sorry that I've had all these problems, but I can't help it. It is what it is, and that's been my experience. It's unfortunate, but I think all in all, at the end of the day, with a motherboard that was not fully supported, it's actually performing pretty well. All right, guys, we're gonna go. Thanks for watching. Tell me what you think down below, and I will see you guys in the next one.